Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. A very warm welcome to yet another session of Weekend with Wisdom with Sri Ramaswamy ji. And this is the final concluding session of this weekend. And he will be continuing his analysis on the classical English poetry, the Vedantic insights in those poetry. And without further ado, I request Ramaswamy ji to start his session.
Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Basically, all the religions are having the final aim of redeeming the individual. Whatever be the method of it, and whatever is the ultimate state that is promised by all religions, one thing that we see common in all the religions is that they make us understand that our life in this world is ultimately ridden with sorrow, and you are not belonging here. You need to be redeemed from this, and that state is called by different names in different religions. But essentially, they are saying that something beyond this world is there, and that is where you belong to. Salvation, Apavarga, Kaivalya, Moksha, Mukti, various names are given for this ultimate state, which is freedom of an individual. So they view this limited existence between birth and death as not our real thing, but there is something beyond this. Of all these religions or schools of thought and philosophies, it is Advaita Vedanta which boldly states that you are free. You are already free. It is a misunderstanding that you consider yourself to be finite. The bondage that you claim for yourself is imaginary. You are free here and now. But unfortunately, we are not aware of our original state now. We consider ourselves to be finite individuals, and we continue to suffer in this world. So, when we talk about spiritual path from this angle, as Swami Ramatirtha says, it is a misnomer. There is no such thing as path. Path immediately indicates that you are here and you have to go somewhere else, and there is a path for that. For example, in certain schools of thought, they say that the ultimate state that you need to attain or realize is some heaven somewhere. It could be Vaikuntha, it could be Kailasha, it could be any other picture that is created for your imagination where you ultimately have to reach. Maybe after death, if you live the life in a certain way, after death, you will reach there. So in terms of time, it is later. In terms of space, it is somewhere else. And this is the common theme in almost all the religions. But Vedanta says, there is no such thing as going from one place to another. There is not something that is attainment after some period of time. You are that ultimate reality or the self already, here and now. This is the bold claim of Vedanta. So from this angle, if we see, spiritual path is not a proper term to use. And yet it is correct to use it. We have to understand it in the proper sense. So what is then the spiritual path? Spiritual path is that if you ask, if I am that infinite consciousness bliss, I am that Satchidananda here and now, why am I not feeling it? Why am I not experiencing it? In fact, whatever I am experiencing is just the opposite of it. Sat, which refers to the ultimate, continuous, real existence. I find myself with constant births and deaths, not any absolute existence at all. And Chit, which refers to that ultimate consciousness, I find myself to be a lump of matter, Jada. And we need not talk about Ananda, which is the ultimate state of infinite bliss. I am going through a lot of sorrow and suffering. In between, sometimes I get glimpses of pleasure. That's about all. So when you say the real nature is Satchidananda, my experience is totally the opposite of it. So how do you substantiate your claim then? So Vedanta says that you are it, but it's that you are ignorant of it. You are ignorant of your state. Just as a person who has eaten fully and he is dreaming that he is starving. No, that is your imagination. That's your ignorance. That is not reality. You are rich, but you are dreaming that you are a poor person and wanting help from others. And rather, you are in a position to help the whole society. But in dream, you are experiencing something totally ulta or opposite. So, what is the explanation there? It is just that you are not aware of your real state. And there is somebody who comes into our life in the form of a guru who exposes us to who we really are. He is not bringing in any external title to us or a condition to us. That original condition or state that you already are, he is making you aware of it through this knowledge. So then how do we understand the spiritual path? If ignorance is what is the barrier, that we need to remove this ignorance. So all those finite efforts that we put to remove this finite obstacle, they can be termed as spiritual path. Spiritual path is the efforts that you put to remove the obstacles which is not allowing you to see your own original self. So the aim of the spiritual path, the efforts of us are also finite in nature. Let us be clear. Finite efforts cannot reveal the infinite. Finite efforts can only remove the finite ignorance. However large it may seem also, ignorance is finite. It appears large and it appears unending only because we are holding it very close to us. Just as a cloud which is very close to us covers the whole sun. Cloud is not bigger than the sun. Or Imagine eyelids. Eyelids are very close to us, and eyelids close and your eyes, and you are not able to see the sun. Does it mean that eyelids are bigger than the sun or clouds are bigger than the sun? No. They are infinitesimally small compared to the sun. And yet it appears to cover the sun. Sun can never be covered. It shines always as it is. But it appears to cover the sun and we are in the dark. So the effort that you put in to open the eyelids or to remove the cloud or remove all the obstacle between you and the sunlight in this example, that is the effort that we can equate to spiritual path. Now, there are manifold practices. The destination is the same, that is to realize the self. But there can be various paths because the way in which the ignorance manifests in all of us need not be the same. All of us have different types of manifestations. The way in which each and every person's desires manifest is completely different. It differs in quantum, it differs in quality, it differs in various other aspects, the direction it takes, etc. So therefore, there are various paths, manifold paths that are given in our Shastras. Broadly speaking, when they address to the humanity at large, the great masters have given 3 right royal paths for us in terms of karma, bhakti and jnana. There are other paths also, but they are not much emphasized like these 3 because other paths are also valid, but it is for maybe a select few who are extremely eligible for that and need to practice under the guidance of a proper guide, spiritual teacher. Like for example, Kundalini and other yogas are also there. But it is not advised that we even talk about it in general because it only creates the curiosity in the other person to see what it is. But it is one has to do it very carefully and, as I said, under a trained proper practitioner. But karma, bhakti, jnana is universal because the usage of body, mind and intellect is there with all of us. So karma, bhakti, jnana is given more weightage and more importance of this. Now this spiritual path is very scientific. This is indicated in the poem here called Daffodils. Now Nitin was asking a question in the first session about how do you really know if the poet really meant what we are reading into it now, which is correct. It could be our Swamiji's interpretation, but it so beautifully fits in that it is complete by itself. Very short and sweet poem, but it is pregnant with the meaning, and the whole of spiritual path is encompassed in the same way and in the same order that Vedanta has prescribed. So it is very inspiring when we see this poem. Okay, first we'll go through this poem. Yes, sir.
The daffodils. I wandered lonely as a cloud that floats on high o'er vales and hills, when all at once I saw a crowd, a host of golden daffodils, beside the lake, beneath the trees, fluttering and dancing in the breeze. continuous as the stars that shine and twinkle on the Milky Way. They stretched in never-ending line along the margin of a bay. 10,000 saw at a glance, tossing their heads in sprightly dance. The waves beside them danced, but they outdid the sparkling waves in glee. A poet could not but be gay in such a jocund company. I gazed and gazed, but little thought what wealth the show to me had brought. For oft when on my couch I lie in vacant or in pensive mood, they flash upon that inward eye, which is the bliss of solitude. And then my heart with pleasure fills and dances with the daffodils. William Wordsworth.
This is the picture of daffodils flower, which usually come out fully in the spring season, particularly in England. And this is what has inspired Wordsworth to produce this beautiful poetry. Now, most of you who are aware of our Swamiji, he uses this diagram even in public lectures. This, in essence, captures the spiritual path as envisaged by Vedanta. A person who is ayuk or a yogi, yogi refers to a person who wants to unite himself with the self. So, a yogi or a yukta means a person who is deviant away from it. He is turned towards the world. He is not interested in union with the self, because as of now we are separated, or that is what our present experience is. We feel that separation and we have no clue of what it is, and he is also not interested in any way in union with the self. He is turned towards the world. An extremely extroverted person. Now, the moment a person comes in contact with this knowledge and he understands through the Guru that this is what I need to pursue in life, that I need to turn my attention towards the self within, then he begins to walk in the path towards the union with the self. In the beginning stage, you can divide this diagram into three. The stage where the three paths are given differently, Karma Yoga, Bhakti Yoga, Jnana Yoga, that is the first stage. Then you find a main road there where there is Uparati, Dharana and Dhyana. That is the second stage. And the third stage is where like a circle is there and Samadhi is there. 5th and 6th chapter of Gita are dealing with this in detail, and they classify these three stages as a person being a yogi, sannyasi and jnani respectively. In the first stage of the spiritual path, you are called as a yogi. In the second stage of the spiritual path, you are a sannyasi. And in the third stage, a jnani. Here, jnani means an enlightened person. Sannyasi means a person who is completely withdrawn and a renunciate. And yogi is a person who is striving in the initial stage of the path, doing maximum karma yoga. What we mean by karma yoga here is that since he is having a lot of desires to deal with, all his sadhana are expression oriented. So whether we do karma yoga, bhakti yoga, jnana yoga, whatever we do, he is vigorously participating with his organs of action to get the attunement to the self. And in the first stage, therefore, he is called as a yogi. Now, what is this? Why these three paths, karma, bhakti and jnana, are given a weightage or considered right royal paths here? Because we have these three equipments with us: body, mind and intellect. When we use our body and do actions towards the union of the self, we are practicing karma yoga. When we are using the mind to feel the emotions towards the Supreme, then that is called as bhakti yoga. When we are using our intellect to gain the knowledge of the self, then that is termed as jnana yoga. Since these are the three prominent equipments that we have, These three equipments have to be simultaneously used for our evolution, and hence these three paths are distinct and different in the initial stage. Of these three also, it is the Karma Yoga which has to be practiced much more when you talk in terms of the energy and the time spent. And then that leads to Bhakti and that leads to Jnana also. That is the sequence that is given. In a way, when they interpret Bhagavad Gita's 18 chapters, they say the first 6 chapters deal majorly with Karma Yoga. Though there are chapters and verses which talk about the highest everywhere throughout the Gita also, by and large, if you see the thought process, first 6 chapters deal with the karma aspect of the sadhana. The middle 6 chapters talk about the bhakti aspect of sadhana, bhakti yoga. And that prepares us for the final 6 chapters where the highest level of jnana is given, where 13, 15 chapters are like Upanishads there. So the sequence is the same everywhere. Now, how are these yogas useful for us? Karma Yoga, in essence, we can say Karma Yoga reduces the quantity of our desires. Ignorance in us, which manifests in the form of desires, they are heavy, they are bulk. That bulk of desires has to be reduced first. So reduction in the quantity of desires is by the practice of the path of action or Karma Yoga. Bhakti Yoga improves the quality of our desires. Our emotions becomes finer and subtler, and the feeling is sublime towards the higher reality or God. That is the main purpose of Bhakti Yoga. Jnana Yoga changes the direction of our desires. So how each of these deals with desires is Karma Yoga reduces the quantity, Bhakti Yoga improves the quality, and Jnana Yoga by analysis, by discrimination, changes our direction from terrestrial to transcendent. So when a person is at the initial stage, these things are practiced distinctly and differently. There are specific practices for all the three also. But as a person becomes more introvert because of the reduction of his desires, bulk of his desires, all his expressive attitude is now withdrawn and is more of absorbing nature. That is when he enters the second stage. He is well above the petty desires of the world. He is called as a sannyas, renunciate, where the definition comes from his mental state of abstraction from the world. So Uparati is a state of withdrawal, where he is not so much interested by what is happening in the world. Here, it has gone beyond the affectations of the world also. It's just that he is not interested even about what is happening in the world, because all his orientation and thoughts are towards only reaching the self now. So he's dealing with definitely desires, but a very minimum amount of desires now. And as far as the worldly activities, so in other words, the karma aspect in him drops automatically by his introversion, by the state of the introversion that he has reached. And then he slides into dharana. Here the word concentration must be understood specifically in this context, because it's an English word that we use as concentration. But dharana comes from dhara, which is a continuous flow. So a continuous thought about the self is what he is living with now. In and through all the activities, he is completely thinking about that supreme reality and his merger with the supreme. So having withdrawn himself, he is constantly contemplating and thinking and reflecting about the self. And that culminates in dhyana, which is single pointed concentration on the self. A continuous thought flow, a process by which he is able to visualize a picture, all that now culminates into a single pointed thought flow, a concentrated concentration. That is dhyana. By sustained practice of dhyana, he gets absorbed into the self, as it were, and enlightenment happens. It is not in our effort anymore, it just happens. That state is indicated here as samadhi or self-realization. That is the end of the journey. The culmination happens there. So if you ask whether in the stage of sannyasi also, will he not be doing activities which can be classified as karma, bhakti or jnana? They can be. But the point is that they become integrated. Now there are no more distinct and different practices there. All of them integrate, and the entire personality is oriented towards reaching the Supreme only. And it is a renunciate who is qualified to and realize the self. Even in these three practices, karma, bhakti and jnana, we have to remember that initially a lot of karma yoga is emphasized. It prepares the ground, because of these three also, bhakti and jnana are little more introvert than karma, which is action oriented more. Why it is so? Because the equipments that is majorly used for bhakti and jnana is the inner equipments, mind and intellect, which are subtler than the body. Body means it's just not the body that is acting, but body is the instrument that is used, and our mind and intellect is making use of the actions of the body, and that becomes karma yoga. So if you take the example of planting a seed for it to grow into a tree in agriculture, planting a crop also, you need to first till the land and thoroughly plow it, making the soil ready for planting the seed. And this is the hard part. And this is a necessary part also. Without making the soil conducive, it is just not possible for you to plant the seed. Similarly, making a person, first of all, fit for knowledge, you cannot give him the knowledge. A person who is just not ready, suppose you give the Upanishadic statement of Tattvamasi, of what use it will be? Maybe it will be sometimes counterproductive also. Saying that Aham Brahmasmi and other statements, you will be not knowing what you are doing, and you will be committing various other things. So the statement I am God is not to be a statement that is subject to abuse. To whom does these statements make sense? It's for a person who is well prepared. And that hard preparation is by karma yoga. Once that soil is prepared well, you water that soil. You make it wet. Similarly, once the mind is well prepared like this, it is the water of devotion that makes you prepared, where the seed can get absorbed easily. Then the planting of the seed actually is the jnana. We cannot bypass this sequence. And none of them are per se inferior or superior. It is the question of who is the adhikari and from which stage he is now beginning or doing his sadhana, that one has to adopt that. So therefore, for a person, to the extent that he is emotional in nature, so in some persons, we see that the emotions are well developed. The capacity to feel purely is there automatically. So for them, bhakti yoga is recommended. In some, the capacity to think rationally and to probe and to question and not to take things for granted, that is there automatically. Such scientific minded persons, and yet probing for the sake of knowing the truth, not asking questions for the sake of asking question. With a quest, when they are able to probe and try to analyze and discriminate, in whom intellect is developed like this, jnana yoga is recommended. For those in whom mind and intellect are balanced, in the sense they are not extremely powerfully developed, neither of them. It is because that there is a lot of desires that are still there for them to exhaust. So such people become automatically active in nature. Such active people are recommended Karma Yoga. So those in whom intellect is developed, that is Jnana Yoga. For those in whom the mind is developed emotionally, that's Bhakti Yoga. And for those who are very active in nature, Karma Yoga is recommended. And therefore, it is very important for us to analyze ourselves first under the proper guidance of a guru, and then prescribe spiritual path for ourselves in the proper way. Now, if you ask, is it one which is exclusive of the other? The answer is no, because all of us are a necessary combination of all the facets of our personality. We are not entirely contemplative in nature. We are not entirely emotional in nature. We are not entirely active in nature. All of us are a combination of all these three. It is just the proportion varies. And always, as a rule, we can err on the right side and do a lot of karma in the beginning more. Because as you do karma and exhaust the desires, you automatically elevate yourself to the higher spiritual paths also. So we have to, if we proportionate the spiritual paths like this properly, then our growth is streamlined and it is meteoric also. Otherwise, it will be a lopsided development, which is not recommended. There has to be an overall personality development. The ultimate aim is to dissolve our ego and burn off our desires. So we need to adopt all the three practices that are there, and then probably enter into a state of sannyas where you are completely, meaning you are put on track. Afterwards, that is only a matter of time before you reach the destination. So this is the background that we have to remember, and you will see that in Daffodils, such a small poem, but it is beautifully covering these paths. And it is interesting that it covers the three paths in this order only. It is the order, if you remember this diagram, you will see that this diagram beautifully fits into this poem of Daffodils. We'll see the poem. I wandered lonely as a cloud that floats on high over vales and hills. These first two lines capture the essence of Karma Yoga. How so? I wandered lonely. Wandering, the word here gives the idea of a sense of detachment. Not attached to one place is wandering. But he is not wandering with all the friends and family like some gypsies do. He is wandering lonely by himself. But not just he wanders and wanders lonely, he wanders lonely as a cloud. What is the use of an aimless person wandering here and there? You must wander like a cloud. See, when we look at the cloud above, sometimes you see that it moves here and there. From our point, we do not know. It seems to be like directionless or aimless, but that is not the case. You know how the clouds move, particularly the monsoon clouds. Wherever there is a low pressure that is created, the winds from the high pressure area flow towards the area of low pressure. In that process, they carry the clouds there. So it is there, it is required, and then what the cloud does there? The cloud gives rain, which is the most useful and essential commodity that is required for the world to sustain itself. So what is uniqueness of the cloud is that cloud is a picture or symbol of a giver. When a person gives, he can give all that he has. But this cloud goes one step ahead. It gives all that it has, and finally in the process it gives itself away. So the cloud is the epitome of selfless service and sacrifice. And that in essence is Karma Yoga. So what is Karma Yoga? Karma Yoga is not in what you do as actions or what you practice. It is with what attitude you practice. So Karma Yoga is not change of your actions, but change of the attitude in your actions. Each and every action that we do can be viewed from the angle of what is it that it is going to get for me. Even let us say, it can be termed spiritual from an external point of view, but a talk like this, a person is giving talk, but the intention is, what can I get out of this? Whether I can get some money out of this, whether I can get some following out of this, or fame out of this. It becomes any other mundane action, even though we may talk about Vedanta, Bhagavad Gita, or classical literature. All this is not relevant. Attitude is isme mera kya hai? What is there for me? Rather, other attitude is, how can I be of service to others? If there is a way by which whatever has been taught to me can be passed on to others, that is an attitude of helping others. This is applicable in all activities. A person can even do household activities. They are thinking in terms of what is it that I can contribute to the family? What is it that I can contribute to the society? A person can be doing a mundane action in the office or doing just mechanical action in the factory. How does that become a Karma Yoga? It is the same attitude. It is not that I am just doing this work to earn some money so that I can run my family. You are actually lowering your status. Bhagavad Gita says, Kripana Palahetavaha. A person who is oriented towards the results like this is a person who has to be pitied, Kripana. Rather, raise yourself by yourself. Put yourself in a high pedestal, not egoistically. You are giving a value to what you are doing by putting your thoughts on a higher goal or an ideal. He can still produce the same nut or bolt. That's all he is doing in the factory. But that production that he does is going to help in some other big thing, or it is going to improve the economy of the state or country. To that extent, he can imagine and do it. That is when he is able to raise himself and put a prestige and value to his actions. That becomes Karma Yoga. In simple terms, others come first, not me. That is why in the yajna, what we do as yajna is Karma Yoga. In this yajna, what is the mantra that is repeated after every swaha is that na mama. You say Indraya swaha and you say Indraya idam na mama. I am oblating it to Indra, who is the universal hand, not to myself. I am oblating this offering to Vishnu, Vishnave swaha. Vishnave idam na mama. It is not for me, na mama. Rudraya Pashupataye swaha. I am offering it to Rudra, Supreme Lord Shiva. Rudraya idam na mama, not for me. So this thought of the selfishness being unhighlighted and offering to a higher cause represented by gods in the yajna. That is why the Vedic rituals are classified as karma yoga. If you do it with this attitude, it becomes Karma Yoga. So in the Bhagavad Gita times, sage Vedavyasa, through the mouth of Lord Krishna, when Bhagavad Gita is given, he is asking Arjuna to perform yajna where? In the battlefield. How it is possible that it can only point out to then the fire sacrifice alone? The spirit of yajna can be applied to each and every activity that we do. A person can be a soldier in the battlefield and he can be a ahuti in the yajna that is happening there if he chooses to fight for a cause. The cause there is symbolized by that fire. And whatever you oblate your activities towards that, that is your offering there. The fire will shoot up and bless you. Then you are performing yajna. So that yajna spirit is beautifully captured by the the cloud here, the example of cloud here. Cloud pours itself away, in the process dissolve itself completely. And why does it do it? For the welfare of the world, that's all. It is having no personal ego or egocentric desires here. That spirit of saying after you, après vous, they say in French, après vous is karma yoga. How do we practice in a simple way? When you enter an elevator, you wait and say after you to other person. That's all it is. You open the door and let others enter first. That is karma yoga only. When you go into an auditorium, go and occupy the middle seat so that the other persons will not disturb and occupy the aisle seats. That is karma yoga. In each and every case, others need and other thought of others comes first. That is karma yoga. Once you practice like this, what happens? That floats on high over vales and hills. You are elevated. How does this elevation happen? The essential purpose of karma yoga is chitta shuddhi. Chitta shuddhi means purification of path. You are floating high over valleys and hills means that you are above the pairs of opposites of the world. None of these touch you anymore. And you are in a very elevated feeling. That is how the rituals and other things that we perform properly purifies our heart. And what is the test of that purification? The test of that purification is that a feeling comes into your mind and it catches you unaware, which is the starting point of bhakti. And that is beautifully captured in the next line. When all at once I saw a crowd, a host of golden daffodils. Carefully mark here that there is a comma after host here, which our Swamiji asked our friend who is in England, like us taking the class, to check probably the original, which is the manuscript in preserved in the library is there. Because technically, grammatically, this may be wrong. Host, comma of golden daffodils. But it is there in the original like that. Why? When you are wandering like this, and in a way that you are performing the karma yoga, suddenly you are caught unaware by the presence of the divinity everywhere, and that feeling is indicated here with a pause. So there is a pause. To indicate that pause, a comma is there after a host of golden daffodils. When you heard Swamiji read out the poem also, you would have, if you have noticed, he paused here to indicate that feeling. And this is what is bhakti all about. Yes, the splash of divinity is there everywhere all the time. It is just that we are not able to see it. We are not able to visualize it. See, it is said, the grosser the person, greater is the manifestation or expression that is required for him to even think about the divinity. A gross, selfish person, suddenly if he stands in front of the Himalayas or the vast Pacific Ocean or a Grand Canyon or whatever it is, in a very grand expression of the nature, for a moment he forgets himself and he says, my God, wow, that sort of a thing. Why it happens like that? Because the divinity expresses itself in such a magnificent way, individuality automatically goes into insignificance. This is externally propped. It is because of this contrast that he is remembering God in that such a magnificent expression. Yeah, spiritually evolved person can get that same feeling maybe when he sees a sunrise or sunset also. He can go into raptures by looking at that beauty itself, standing on his terrace. When a person is as elevated, let us say like the poet here, a small flower like daffodils, of course it's not a small flower, he is going to say a host, a big flowering is there, of quantity of flowers are there. A flower or when you peel even a banana skin, you can go into raptures seeing how that the divinity has packed this. So you are caught unaware by this, and that is the feeling that is being expressed here, a host of golden daffodils. From now on, in that rapturous state, he is only describing that. This we should not explain beyond a point, because this is something that you should feel. In other words, in this poem, you have to imagine yourself as Wordsworth and walk among the daffodils there. And then only we will be able to picturize what he has got here. Beside the lake, beneath the trees, fluttering and dancing in the breeze. It is there everywhere. There is a lake. It is said that the places where Wordsworth lived and maybe Shakespeare and other poets lived in England, the Lake District and other places there, it is so beautiful that even a normal person will write poetry there. Such a way it is, nature has blessed with beauty and bounty there. So it is there. Not that everybody who goes there has to become a poet. The point is that a poet is one who is able to connect with that divinity, and that is when what flows out of him is a poetry. We had mentioned in the write-up also that Upanishad talks about a self-realized master as a Kavi. Who is a Kavi? Kavi is a poet. It is not that he will think and calculate the words and put in the words like that to create a poetry. There are also poets like that, but this is an outpouring of his emotion which automatically comes when he encounters such an experience. So it is there beside the lake, it is there beneath the trees, and fluttering and dancing in the breeze. In the breeze, they are swaying like this, and that's a beautiful dance. Continuous as the stars that shine and twinkle on the Milky Way, they stretched in never-ending line along the margin of a bay. 10,000 saw I at a glance, tossing their heads in a sprightly dance. When we see any bhakta, who are also usually poets, take the poetry of Tukaram, Mirabai, Alvars, whoever they are all constantly in touch with divinity. So in that state, when they, let us say, think of Lord Krishna, Lord Rama, and they are singing poetry, if you analyze that poetry, they will be just describing as they are visualizing. So they will say, in the neck, on the neck I see your necklace, on the ankle I see the anklet, in the hands I see the bangle. I mean, if you analyze it, where else will be the bangle there? You cannot ask like this. Bangle will be in the hands only. Anklets will be in the ankle only. What is it, the big thing that you are conveying? We are clearly missing the point there. They are able to feel the presence of Krishna in front of them, looking at them and describing as it is, that is how. So if you get into their mode in that way, you will also be able to feel. That is why the poetries of Kirtans of Saint Tyagaraja and others, how are they able to elevate us? They are able to elevate us because it is a pouring out of their emotions in that ultimate sattvic state. It comes out. So like that, we have to see this. Continuous as the stars that shine and twinkle on the Milky Way. In the Milky Way is our constellation where stars are there and they shine continuously. Never ending, infinite are there. Like that, these daffodils are stretching in a never-ending line along the margin of a bay. So he puts a very high number. 10,000 saw at a glance, tossing their heads in a sprightly dance. All this is bhakti. All this is the outpouring of the emotion. The waves beside them danced, but they outdid the sparkling waves in glee. The lake is there, and the lake has waves, and sunlight is reflecting on the waves. So the waves are sparkling. The waves are also dancing. But the dance of the daffodils is better than the dance of the waves. So they outdid the sparkling waves in glee. And this we can appreciate only if we go somewhere near Wordsworth's mind. That's all it is. Otherwise, more of explanation only probably spoils the whole thing. It is the way in which he beautifully describes how the daffodils and how he is enjoying the beauty of the presence of the daffodils there. The waves beside them dance, but they outdid the sparkling waves in glee. And so he concludes saying, a poet could not but be gay in such a jocund company. How can anybody not be feeling that ultimate happiness when they are in a company like this? You will forget everything and you are just enjoying that. That's all it is. He is totally now having a beautiful relationship with that daffodils. A poet could not but be gay in such a jocund company. And then comes, so from Karma Yoga, because of Chitta Shuddhi, you are caught unaware and the pouring out of feeling comes, which is Bhakti Yoga. Awareness of divinity, when you couple it with gratitude, is the ultimate of Bhakti. If you are able to see the divinity splashed everywhere and you bow down to that with gratitude, that is Bhakti. Now, when you are constantly now focused on this, the ego ultimately disappears and there is nobody to thank and there is nobody to be thanked. Pure awareness is there. That is jnana. So Bhakti ultimately culminates in jnana. And that is what we see here. Here also, if you had carefully noticed when the poem was read, I gazed and gazed, but little thought. There was a clear pause there. Now he is completely in the stage of reflecting and contemplating on the experience that he is having. These two words, gazed and gazed, indicate the path of Jnana Yoga. He has still not grasped what is this wealth that this experience has got him. But that is what he is going to get. And that is why we say that this comes out of reflection and contemplation. Now, what is the purpose of this? When we listen to the masters or we read the books and we get to the basic knowledge, that stage is called as Shravana. Shravana or listening is the first stage when we are dealing with the first phase of ignorance, which is I don't know. The second stage of ignorance is taken care, which is the ignorance manifests as I don't understand by reflection. Manan. You are questioning, you are thinking, you are viewing it from various angles, various exercises that you do, that you want to understand what they are conveying, not merely the words, but you want to in depth understand so that all your doubts and indecisions are cleared off. So you are now able to get some intellectual clarity. But then it should not stop there. It should culminate in that whatever I have understood intellectually must become a practical living experience for me in reality. So the third phase of ignorance, which is actually I don't experience that. Now I'm able to understand it. I'm able to somewhat visualize it. But it should become a living reality for me. How do I experience it? By the process of nididhyasana, meditation. So Jnana Yoga actually leads you there and ultimately culminates there, which we are going to see in the next stanza where it culminates. But he says here, by deeper reflection and contemplation, the idea that we have now in a two-dimensional form should convert itself into a three-dimensional whole picture. So that is when some 3D picture also is given, it's very hazy for us. We don't understand what it is. But there is a way to look at it. You have to focusedly try to look at something beyond the picture in the picture. Only then the picture slowly emerges out of it. Suddenly you see there are some black lines here and there. I see now, Om is there. How does the Om come? Om comes by the way in which you are able to penetrate and see this. This penetration is the role that the intellect plays here. So he is now capturing the entire daffodils in his thought so that he is going to reflect upon it. And how do we know? It comes because when we see the next line, it comes out very beautifully. I gazed and gazed, but little thought what wealth the show to me had brought. Actually, I did not know that this type of experience is going to give me such a important treasure in my life. I did not think about it, but that is what actually happened and I experienced. How do we say? For oft when on my couch I lie in vacant or in pensive mood. He has finished the experience externally now. He has withdrawn himself to the, let us say, wherever he is staying, in his house. and he is lying down on the couch. Still, he is not able to get rid of the experience of the daffodils, what he saw before. So he says here, for oft when on my couch I lie, in vacant or in pensive mood. These two words are generally opposite. In the sense, vacant is something which is completely empty. Pensive is something that you are very perceptive or focused upon. So, how do we fit in here then? So, it means that the person is now vacant of all the worldly thoughts, but he is pensive of the thought of the reality. Here, daffodils is the reality. Daffodils is that which symbolizes the reality here. For oft when on my couch I lie. Sometimes we also have some experiences. We sleep on the bed and look at the ceiling in a very blank stare. But actually you are thinking of something else there. You know, like that it is now. His personality is now completely preoccupied with this daffodils. For oft when on my couch I lie, in vacant of the worldly thoughts and pensive of the reality, in vacant or in pensive mode, they flash upon that inward eye, which is the bliss of solitude. They flash upon that inward eye. We have to underline this phrase, inward eye. Inward eye refers to what Vedantic literature call as Jnana Chakshu. Jnana Chakshu is the eye of wisdom. In the picture of Lord Shiva, and sometimes Trinayani, God also, we see that there is an eye that is there in the forehead, which is called as the third eye. All of us have this normally two eyes. These two eyes are fleshy eyes, and these fleshy eyes help us to see the world. But what we see in the world with these two eyes is one thing. But the third eye, which is represented by the eye that is drawn on the forehead, is actually not a fleshy eye. It is a vision like an X-ray vision, which penetrates the external manifestation, goes deeper into what you see, and it is able to reveal the essential substance that is there in you, which is the self. That ability to see that actually opens up in a person, and this is called as Jnana Chakshu. The coconut is a very good example in this. And another example that fits in beautifully for the human personality is coconut. There is a purpose for which we use coconut in our religious functions. Coconut is you can say it's a fruit that that lasts long also. So if people are going to carry fruits to temples which are far off, or where they have to climb hills and reach the shrine, coconut is the best thing to take. Even when people now in this month they do the vrata for Shabarimala, and then they will go and have the darshan of the Lord in January. And when they climb up the hill, they carry something on their head known as the irumudi. Irumudi is the two knots that are there, and in that what they tie is the coconut only. So coconut is something that is often used in pujas. One of the reasons that somebody said is also from a physical point of view, that all other, let's say if there is a mango, if there is a banana, all these can be directly contacted by any animal or anything, even in your absence. We do not know. It can be made like what you say is juta. Coconut cannot be done like that. It is very, very well packed inside. So there's no chance of spoiling for that. And how is this coconut appearing? It is appearing very smooth from outside. It's a very that is there outside, very smooth it is. But inside that shell is all coils. all koyas are there. All the koyas emerge from a hard shell inside. And inside that hard brown shell is this white kernel. So when you go to the priest in the temple, when you carry the coconut, what you do is you remove that external covering and you try to remove all the koyas as far as possible, but you leave the tuft. With the tuft, you give it as an offering to the priest, to the god through the priest. And what does the priest do? He removes the tuft and exposes, and very clearly in that coconut there are 3 eyes. They say the 3 eyes of the coconuts are there. 3 spots are there. 3 eyes. And then he breaks the hard shell and exposes the kernel to the Lord. How does it represent a human personality? The soft external covering represents the gross body of an individual. It is so smooth. We are well dressed, coated and suited. Our appearance is like this. But inside that covering is all koyas. So inside this is all our attachments, desires, which are intertwined, which cannot be really counted. That sort of internal personality is represented by this coir of the coconut. And where does it come from? The hard shell, which is the causal body. So the external covering of the coconut is the gross body. The internal koyas is the subtle body. And the hard shell is the causal body. So when we go to a temple, sanctum sanctorum, which is a spiritual place, the priest represents the guru here. So when you go there, you shave off all the desires. But a tuft is kept. That is why when the boys go to Gurukula in the olden days, they have to keep the tuft and go and study how it is representing the discipline. They are left with very few desires when they approach the Guru to learn this knowledge, to serve him, to realize the God like this. They are dealing with minimum number of desires there. And what does the priest do? He removes the tuft. Similarly, the Guru helps you remove those desires and exposes the 3 eyes, and that is Jnana Chakshu. So Jnana Chakshu is the way by which, a vision by which, a perception by which you are able to view the omnipresent reality everywhere beyond the external manifestation of the names and forms that we see. So there is a building and there is a substratum to the building. You penetrate through the building and see what is the substratum behind it. And substratum behind it, when you are able to visualize it, you see it splashed everywhere. That is one and the same. And that is what is indicated here. So the white kernel then represents the self within, which is exposed to the Lord. So here Wordsworth uses the term inward eye. They flash upon that inward eye. So now the daffodils is coming and flashing upon his vision inside like this, which is the bliss of solitude. He started by wandering lonely and now he is in the bliss of solitude. Solitude is something, it is not that you hate people or you're not wanting crowd or anything like that. It is just that you are all by yourself. You are in that extreme state of self-sufficiency, and that is a person who is in close contact with divinity. So these 4 lines also indicate that after karma, bhakti and jnana, that he has come back to the house, which is withdrawal, and then gone into the state of dharana, and this bliss of solitude also can be indicative of the practice of meditation there upon that that which is flashes in this inward eye there. So a person who is completely withdrawn like this automatically slides into meditation. Meditation should not be attempted unless otherwise we are prepared for it. It is a high-level spiritual practice and its effects are enormous. It is the gateway towards self-realization. But much emphasis must be there on qualification for meditation. Who is qualified to meditate? And it is such a person who has knocked off his desires and who is pensive of the reality. For him, in whom all the thought all the time is about the reality, he automatically slides into meditation. They flash upon that inward eye, which is the bliss of solitude. And then my heart with pleasure fills and dances. Now that culminates in ultimate samadhi. All this while, I and daffodils were different from each other, and I was experiencing daffodils. Now my heart with pleasure fills. There is absolute merger that has happened. This pleasure here has to be taken as the ultimate state of ananda. In context of the meaning here, we can use the term ananda, which is your original state. And then what happens? It dances with the daffodils. There is no more me and daffodils different. We have become one and the same. This is the culmination of all spiritual experience. We find it very interesting that every time there is a culminating experience like this, which is ultimate jnana, that expression comes out as a dance. Lord Shiva, the picture that we have, Lord Shiva, is that he is doing tapas with the jata. Jata is the matted locks. His eyes are closed and he is constantly in extreme deep meditation. What happens on the Shivaratri day is that he keeps the Trishul aside and there is a Ananda Tandava. Tandava is the dance of ecstasy. You see that dance is the central theme around which there are flames there. And his matted locks are now open. So you see the Nataraja's statue anywhere. They will be parallel to the ground, the hair. When will hair usually comes down, falls down. Why? When will it be parallel? When the motion is of a high swirling speed. So somebody has taken a photograph of that and presented to us the beautiful pose of Nataraja. That state of Ananda Tandava is the spiritual ecstasy of realization. Even in Krishna Leela, we find that all the Leelas in Gokul and Vrindavan finally culminate in Rasa Leela. Rasa Leela is where all the gopis are able to merge and dance with Krishna. And that picture is very beautiful. For every gopi, there is one Krishna dancing. And then there is a Krishna standing in the middle around whom all this dance also takes place. Just like around Shiva, the entire universe is dancing. Around a solitary Krishna, all the gopis are dancing with Krishna as the partner also. Oh, all this gopis represent the thought forces which is now merged with the Supreme Self. And who is finally seen? It is that Krishna who is alone that is finally seen. So this dance sequence also shows the ultimate state of self-realization, this Rasa Krida. So here also he says, and then my heart with pleasure fills and dances with the daffodils. We'll quickly go through this poem again. I wandered lonely as a cloud that floats on high over vales and hills, when all at once I saw a crowd, a host of golden daffodils, beside the lake, beneath the trees, fluttering and dancing in the breeze. Continuous that shine and twinkle on the Milky Way, they stretched in a never-ending line along the margin of a bay. 10,000 saw I at a glance, tossing their heads in a sprightly dance. The waves beside them dance, but they outdid the sparkling waves in glee. A poet could not but be gay in such a jocund company. I gazed and gazed, but little thought what wealth the show to me had brought. For oft when on my couch I lie in vacant or in pensive mood, they flash upon that inward eye which is the bliss of solitude, and then my heart with pleasure fills and dances with the daffodils. William Wordsworth. Before we conclude, we'll just read out the commentary by Swamiji.
The poem indicates to humanity the path to spiritual enlightenment. The path encompasses the three disciplines of karma, action, bhakti, devotion, and jnana, knowledge, followed by meditation. Meditation culminates in merger with the supreme reality. The first part of the poem deals with action. Wandering alone like a cloud implies selfless service performed in a spirit of detachment. When a spiritual seeker continuously engages himself in service and sacrifice, his personality suddenly experiences a unifying feeling of love. The poet very subtly indicates this gush of love by placing a comma after the word host. The joy of love experienced at the sight of daffodils indicates universal love, the essence of devotion. And the words gazed and gazed suggest contemplation and acquisition of knowledge. The spiritual practice of meditation culminating in enlightenment is evidenced by the last stanza. The poet's mind is vacant of worldly desire and attachment. He remains pensive in deep thought of reality. That opens the inward eye referred in the scriptures as the eye of wisdom, jnana chakshu. He becomes one with the all, dances with the daffodils.
Right. Thank you very much. Before we conclude or take up questions, only one announcement for those who have not been here before, that this Thursday, that is December 1 to December 4, which is Sunday, we have the Bhagavad Gita lectures, annual Gita lectures, which one chapter is taken every year. So this year Sunandaji will be taking the 4th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. It is online. You can all register in our website vedanta-kolkata.org, and you can pass on the information to all your friends who may be interested.
Thank you very much, Ramaswamy ji.
Sorry, Nitin, only 1 minute. Here, Alpana is saying unable to send the message to everyone. It is only to hosts and panelists. You can just pass them.
I'll just pass it on. Yeah. I think we have some questions. I'll just check it out. One of the questions we have received is nididhyasa and meditation same? If not, where does it come in the sequence?
Right. So generally, the term nididhyasana is also translated as meditation, and particularly when we use the sequence of Shravana, Manana, and nididhyasana from the Vedantic point of view, which is given in the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, which talks about the 3 phases of removal of ignorance. We use Shravana to gain knowledge, Manana to reflect on the knowledge, and then we say nididhyasana to meditate upon that reality and enter the state of enlightenment. And meditation is normally used also in yoga and Ashtanga yoga and various other spiritual practices, like various techniques that are given in Buddhism also, where ultimately the thought is forcefully absorbed into a state and then into emptiness, sort of it, as it were, not thinking, nirvishaya man, they say, without any subject. If you are able to think about a particular thought, that is defined as also meditation. Now, in terms of ultimate practice, it will only come when we slide into that level. But what is the difference here is that when you are trying to switch off the, let us say, the screen, when you are trying to switch off the movie in the screen and try to focus on what that blank screen is, that may be equated to what normally we understand as yogic meditation. But even if the movie is there or not there, if you are able to understand that there is a screen behind it and you are able to contemplate it and visualize it in and through all these things, So essentially the purpose is the same, the ultimate result is the same, but the methodology by which you are able to catch hold of that screen even as though the movie is going on, by again a constant practice of what is given in the scriptures, etc., that is called as nididhyasana. So both of them culminate in the same point, but nididhyasana is the way by which you are able to open up the reality and visualize the self beyond it. It can be inward or outward, either way, open eye or closed eye, whatever it is.
Thank you, Ramaswamiji. Viewers, if you have any more questions, please do share it now. We will just wait for a few more minutes. As we are waiting, Ramaswamiji, I had one question based on the schemata that you showed in the beginning, that karma yoga, bhakti yoga, and all coming and going. In that schema, you show that samadhi and self-realization as if they're synonymous. But in traditional Vedanta, as far as I know, samadhi is not same as self-realization or atma jnana, whereas samadhi is a yogic concept, whereas brahmatma aikya jnana is a Vedantic goal. So can you shed some light on this?
Right. What you say is correct. So if you look at that, the three paths culminating into the main road and finally ending up in samadhi, it is a beautiful confluence of what is normally understood in Ashtanga Yoga, where they use first yama and niyama, then they use asana, pranayama. Pratyahara is a state where completely there is control of senses and withdrawal. Then dharana, dhyana, samadhi is the eightfold path that is given in the Ashtanga Yoga. And there the samadhi is complete absorption of thought, where yoga is defined as chitta vritti nirodha, that is complete, all the vrittis of the mind are completely arrested. That is called as samadhi state there. And as far as the Vedantic method, or what is traditionally given, what we said as in terms of absorbing the knowledge, in terms of shravana, manana, nididhyasana, etc. In nididhyasana, as you rightly said, it is the visualization or the perception of the self, as it were, which is opening up, which we call as enlightenment. Okay, so there could be really technically difference. But where we find this reconciliation is, even in Bhajagovindam towards the end, where he talks about the Antaranga Sadhana, he says, pranayamam pratyaharam nitya nitya vivek. So even as a personal, so what is the main emphasis of yogic method is that you forcefully put your mind through all these disciplines and in a way beat it to submission not in a negative way, but you such a way that it has no other path but to escape, but to go towards this only. But what really helps that is where he says nitya anitya viveka vicharam, which is essentially jnana yoga, to distinguish between what is real and what is unreal, what is permanent and what is ephemeral. This constant reflection is what is going to aid you in this also. So in other words, bereft of knowledge, we cannot just beat the mind into submission like how a circus animal is trained. It is just not possible. So in this way also, if you go into it, he says finally, japya sameda samadhi vidhanam, kurvadhanam, mahadavadhanam. You go into japa, you go into meditation, you go into all this practice, but do it with proper care, he says. So if you talk about samadhi as the ultimate state, what really happens after that, whether the thought is completely absorbed, whether enlightenment is given, it is not in an individual's effort. Our effort is over as far as maintaining that single pointed thought is concerned, or wanting to try to see that reality is concerned. The individual's effort culminates there. What happens after that is not in our hands. That's why he says, Ma Shuchaha, I will grant you liberation, don't worry. So in that state, finally, what happens, how the Advaita Jnanam comes, we see even that those who are staunchly in the Dvaita paths and other thing also, in that moment of ecstasy, certain words come out of them as though that I am God, Aham Brahmasmi, that word comes. So what really culminates in enlightenment is probably beyond human effort there. So the reconciliatory thing happens there.
That's a very wonderful way of putting how the yogic, the Raja Yoga or the Patanjali Yoga path kind of complements the Vedantic journey. I think this has been the stand of Vedanta Acharyas itself, from notably Swami Vidyaranya and many others, Madhusudana, others. they've expressed this view. I think one more point we can highlight is that while samadhi is, as you said, chitta vritti nirodha, the Vedantic pursuit, the nididhyasa, is rather, in the words of Viveka Chodamani, Saswarupa Anusandhanam. So I think that is one key difference, wherein in the yoga, the meditation aims to attain chitta vritti nirodha, but here we aim to attain, I think, the atmakara vritti jnana or brahmakara vritti jnana, right? So I think this is a key difference, but one always complements the other, and each helps each other.
Correct.
I haven't received any more questions, Ramaswamiji.
Right.
So I think we can conclude this session, and I must say it has been wonderful sessions. All the 2 days, all the 4 sessions, it has been amazing, and I'm sure all of our audience have deeply enjoyed it. We have received many comments. I think you have seen many of them already in the Q&A box, this session and earlier sessions also, that the audience have deeply enjoyed these sessions. And we look forward to doing more sessions with you in future. On the behalf of entire Indica Moksha team and all of our audience, I thank you again for coming on our show. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Namo Parama Shivya.
Viewers, we conclude the session here. Please follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram for more details about upcoming events. And also the various lectures we upload on YouTube channel. Do subscribe to our channel as well. Shri Guru Pyo Namah.